The cold wind howled through the dense forest, rustling the skeletal branches of the dead trees. A thick fog clung to the ground, snaking through the undergrowth like a living thing. The air was damp, heavy with the scent of decaying leaves and something else. Something foul, something wrong. A lone figure trudged through the darkness, his breath coming in short, sharp gasps. He had been walking for hours, maybe longer. Time had lost all meaning. His phone had died long ago, leaving him without a map, without a light. The only illumination came from the sliver of a moon hanging high above, its pale glow barely cutting through the fog. Every now and then, he would hear something moving in the darkness. Footsteps, whispered voices, the snap of a twig underfoot. But whenever he turned, there was nothing. Just the endless trees, stretching into the abyss. He didn't remember how he had gotten here. The last thing he recalled was the highway, his car breaking down on the side of the road. A long, lonely stretch of asphalt in the middle of nowhere. The gas station had been miles back, and the next town even farther. There had been no choice but to start walking. Somewhere along the way, he had taken a wrong turn. The road had disappeared behind him, swallowed by the forest, and now he was lost. The wind picked up again, and with it came a sound that froze him in place. A laugh. High and shrill, like a child's, but distorted. Twisted. It echoed through the trees, bouncing from one trunk to another until it seemed to come from all directions at once. His breath hitched in his throat, and he forced himself to move, to keep going. The path he followed was barely a path at all, just a thin strip of dirt winding through the trees. The fog thickened as he walked, curling around his ankles like fingers. The laughter came again, closer this time. He quickened his pace, his heartbeat pounding against his ribs. The sound of something running through the trees chased him, footfalls slamming against the earth in uneven, frantic bursts. Then, just ahead, he saw it. A house. It stood in the clearing, dark and silent. The structure was ancient, its wooden frame warped and rotting. The windows were shattered, jagged shards of glass reflecting the pale moonlight. The door hung slightly ajar, creaking as it swayed in the wind. He hesitated for only a moment before stepping onto the porch. The wood groaned beneath his weight. Inside, the air was colder, heavier. Dust coated every surface, disturbed only by faint footprints in the grime. His own. He frowned, his pulse quickening. That was impossible. He had never been here before. But the prints were there, unmistakable. They led deeper into the house, vanishing into the darkness beyond the hallway. Something moved in the shadows, a whisper of fabric, a soft, wet breath. He turned sharply, his eyes straining in the gloom. The floorboards creaked, slow and deliberate, as if something, was shifting its weight just out of sight. He took a step forward. The air grew thick, pressing against his skin, pushing into his lungs. A sound rose from the silence, a low, guttural moan that sent ice crawling down his spine. It came from the doorway ahead, a yawning black void that seemed to pulse and breathe. A light flickered on. A single, dim bulb swaying from the ceiling. It cast long, trembling shadows across the walls. The footprints were gone. He swallowed hard, his throat dry. The room was empty. A kitchen, by the looks of it, though time had reduced it to little more than a corpse of its former self. Rusted pots hung from broken hooks. A table sat in the center, warped and splintered, its surface marred by deep gouges. Something had been dragged across it. Something heavy. Something struggling. A rusted knife lay on the counter, its blade dark with something too thick to be rust. A shadow moved in the doorway. He spun around, his breath catching. The hallway was empty. The wind outside had died, leaving only silence. His heartbeat thundered in his ears. He took a slow step backward, his heel catching on something soft. A sound escaped his lips, a strangled, choked noise. He looked down. A body. No, not a body. A shell. The thing on the floor had once been human, but time, or something worse, had hollowed it out. Its skin hung loose over bones too sharp, too long. Its mouth was frozen in a silent scream, lips peeled back to reveal jagged, uneven teeth. Its eyes were missing, the sockets gaping voids that oozed something black and glistening. His breath came in short, shallow gasps. He stepped back, his mind screaming.